Oh, it's tier list time. I had to get this out because if you've seen me on Twitter, a lot of people play Scorpion really high, and I have feelings about this. So I want to wait on Scorpion a little bit. Let's start left to right, and Liu Kang is an easy A. Now, the only issue I have with Liu Kang right now is he doesn't fit into the meta, which is every character has mix-ups. I still think his strike throw is some of the best in the entire game, and I also think him having a 6-frame jab and him having decent zoning tools is a huge advantage for this character. I just don't think the new move they added that makes the mid-high launching string safe with mid-mid, I just don't think it's done enough for him. I'm cool with this character being kind of a starter pick. It teaches you how to do throw combos. He has a little bit of everything. The only thing he doesn't have is mix-ups, but his biggest crime is that he's actually boring to play at this point, and also he feels like a bygone era of the meta. Kung Lao is also going an A for me, but he's deceptively high right now. He would be towards the bottom of my A. He didn't get Tanya gutted because Tanya got the shadow nerfs, but his identity I think is still missing, even with the replacement buffs where he can do larger combos through the air hat. I think the quick spin movement is really nice. It doesn't give him a teleport, but he can close space very fast. It almost feels like smoke when I'm doing it, but I just don't know if that's enough. He doesn't really have an identity anymore. His big thing was just armored launchers, safe armored launchers, plus safe armored launchers. So now when he goes for those dive kicks trying to bait you into pressing or poking or anything like that, he has to spend a lot of resource, unlike he used to be able to just spend 1 bar and that was it. Raiden's going in B for me. I think Raiden's biggest crime is he doesn't play into the meta well, but he's not terrible. Like, he's lost his identity too. Being the top 1 in the game for so many seasons to start the release cycle of MK1 has definitely made it so he's been left behind in the meta, and he might not get a buff anytime soon, but he's not awful. He could still kind of mash a good bit. He's got decent damage when he gets his openings. I think his mid is decent for the range, but not great. I think either the mid could be sped up a tiny bit or close the jab gap before his overhead and make it so you have to armor, because half the characters in the game at this point have armored launchers that everyone's doing, so why not just make people spend armor to get out of the second hit overhead? Geras, high A, but he's not S. A lot of people are probably thinking I would put Geras in S because his command grab is sick. He can do it on hit, on block. He can kind of default into it, and it makes his mix pretty insane. There is one thing holding Geras back from being very much top tier, and that's his poke. His down 1 poke. He can't enforce the pressure. There's these really good clips of Geras trying to down 1 against Johnny Cage. I'll put him on screen if I can find him, but essentially no matter what move he does, Johnny Cage can still kind of mash out of it, and he runs into this problem a lot, so he can't really be a true grappler. He needs a better enforcing poke. The reason Reiko is so oppressive is he has really good pokes, sweeps, things like that, as well as projectiles if you space him out. Geras doesn't have all of that, and he's also eating a lot of damage every time he tries to set up an hourglass. So I think once that poke gets fixed, he'll be towards the bottom of S, but at the moment, he's not enforcing his game plan enough for me. Still though, he's a scary character, being able to combo off the overhead, being able to combo off the command grab, comboing off the low. I feel like I'm trying to do big brain mathematics trying to fight against this character now. And if you don't know what you're doing, Geras will absolutely stomp you. He'll feel like he's S+++. Lee May, oh, I don't know. I see, in my eyes, I struggle more against Lee May, but I think that's because I don't play a character with, or like when I'm playing Scorpion Pharah, I don't have an armored combo. I think if you do have an armored combo, you would put Lee May below Raiden because she has so many gaps. It sounds bad, and I try not to advocate for counter picking, but really and truly, if you want to make yourself have an easy time, just start armoring all of her gaps, and all of a sudden you're cashing out on huge damage because that's her biggest weakness. T-Rex arms and gaps, because she has lots of plus frames, a ton of damage, and like a projectile. She's an all-around character with those weaknesses, but that weakness can be pretty easily counterpicked. Kitana, yeah, those nerfs didn't change anything. The mind game is still there, very solid. She's not near the top of S or anything. Kitana's just really well-rounded. She has the trap, she has projectiles, she can be in the air a lot, which is important against a lot of the top tiers like Scorpion. She's getting good damage. She pairs with Jax well, which is hugely important in this meta where Jax is a top 3 cameo in the entire game. I would say in terms of weaknesses on why she's not S+ is obviously she doesn't really have mix per se. Her mid is decent and she has one of the best sweeps in the game, but she has a high attack that is literally useless. I forget what the move's called. It needs to be buffed, bruh. She has a high attack that is literally useless. She is very good when she gets rolling, but then say when you're neutral just in the mid screen, she doesn't really start losing because of that. She's doing fine with that as well, with the fans, jumping her out, throwing air fans, all of that. Now, I personally put Mileena right after Geras above Liu Kang. I really just think since all the Sonya buffs, Mileena just has taken full advantage of that. Yeah, you can use Chameleon and still do well, but the overhead from Sonya is better. We have the overhead where she could jump in the air and attack you. I was somebody that always kind of downplayed Mileena. Like, she could steamroll you, especially online, but I didn't feel like she had that X factor at full screen or long range neutral that I think is really important to winning at a high level. I mean, every way she could close space was unsafe, or it costed a bar a meter to throw a full screen projectile, and the character to me was pretty risk heavy for a while. The Sonya buffs are what have changed Mileena for the better. I think she's high A easily. She wrecks some shit sometimes. Tanya, I am sorry. Tanya C. I might have Tanya as the worst character in the game. What's weird is I don't know if she actually is, but I barely see any Tanyas. I think I've fought one since the nerf. I mean, her whole identity, like Lao, was kind of taken away from her, having safe armored launches. But on top of that, having her mid be 16 frames now, so it's not the best auto shimmy in the game, that took away her second most popular identity, which was having the best auto shimmy. She has to play really weird, spend too much resource, and she's punished for almost all of her moves, it feels like. She's just not very good. Sub-Zero, I would still have him C. Online, I actually think he would be B right here because he's doing much better damage now, but if it was an offline setting, I think we're at this point where the overheads that are like 26 frames or more are just too slow. For offline, that is, because so many characters have a way to mix you up so much faster. He's kind of like Raiden in a lot of ways to me. I think you could speed up his forward 1 and it would make him better exponentially. I think you could speed up his overhead and it would make him better exponentially. I don't know if buffing Ice Clone over and over again is really what people are asking for. I get that now he has better damage because of it, but I think people want the openings themselves to be easier and would actually take the lower damage if opening up the opponent was more frequent. I will say the low slide change is huge. I mean, that's absolutely nuts. That's the best thing NetherRealm has done for Sub-Zero. So online B, but I'm trying to make this as competitively based as possible, so I'd put him at the top of C right now, but he only needs a little bit more to be in a solid spot where he's just mid-tier. Now, Reptile's interesting because Mavado is getting his flowers these days. A lot of people will call Mavado now a top 3 cameo in the entire game. It really started with Reptile too. I feel like Reptile was the first one to show what Mavado can do to enable an entire game plan for a character. He's definitely better than Lao, but I don't think at the highest level he's better than Liu Kang, but he is very good online. I think he's in a tough spot because he's a character that just relies on Mavado. He isn't a good character without Mavado. I mean, he's like B without Mavado, but essentially he's only A because of the cameo, which some people would say that makes him bad, but that's like saying Liu Kang is bad without Kung Lao cameo or Motaro. Of course, he needs the throw combos. I don't know what you do to buff him so that he gets more freedom of expression. I think that's Reptile's biggest issue. You're just locked into one pick every single time. You can get risky with it, like with the Scorpion cameo, but really and truly having auto conversions with Mavado is the way to make this character feel like it hits like a truck and he gets all those openings. As I've said about Reptile a million times, he's the jack of all trades character. He has the invisibility, he has decent armor, he's got some light overhead low mix, he has some cancel pressure, you know, he has a teleport. He really is the jack of all trades, master of none. Wait, actually, because Tanya's mid got nerfed, Reptile does have the best auto shimmy in the game. That's 100%. So, I mean, he has that. Smoke. If you've watched any of my videos, I think Smoke is always a bottom of A character. His big weaknesses are he has gaps everywhere and his armor kind of sucks. His back 2 is 28 frames. That's the overhead, which is really slow. That's slower than Sub-Zero's. I think Sub's is what, 26 frames? His new move is really janky. Like, it's good when it hits, but the problem is it just whiffs a lot of the time. I still don't think it needs to be an overhead personally. I think a mid is fine. He just needs to have the wonkiness changed, and he probably needs an important gap closed or just better armor in general. Okay, Raiden's a difficult one. I'm putting him here. I actually don't think he's better than Reptile solely because you can just pick other characters that play like Rain but better. Scorpion counterpicks Rain. It's a nightmare for Rain players, and there's a lot of Scorpions out there. With Scorpion being good right now, Rain can't really get his game plan going. Back 3 probably should have been a low, but then again, we just nerfed Homelander's low, which is like the exact same range. But if you wanted cancel pressure, you should choose Ermac. His trap, why not play Kitana? You can hold neutral a little bit better with Kitana. So it's like his biggest perk is he has a decent poke and his normals go decently far range, and he can sync up with characters like Darius decently because the normals are slower. It gives you time to really have these hard to blockable situations with Darius. So while I've mostly critiqued him, it's not because he's bad, it's just because there's characters above him that have the exact same types of game plans, which makes Rain a little redundant for me right now. I mean, bro, they put up those water orb shields and Scorpions just teleport punish every time if he tries to do anything. There's no point in using the move. Johnny Cage is still the same old Johnny Cage to me. The difference is now tons of characters have exponentially more things they can do to open opponents up. Like, Johnny is still good. The issue is, yeah, everybody else has sauce finally. He just took advantage of the beginning meta of this game where nobody had anything, and then somehow he played perfectly with Chameleon, so it became even worse. I will say it actually helped him a lot to be able to use cameos to reset his 3 special moves when in hype. It gives you a true reason to always build hype. I see Johnny's build hype every round now. It's hard for a character to be anywhere below the top of A when you have the fastest mid in the game at 9 frames, and then another mid that goes as far as Scorpion Stand 2 at 10 frames that launches. It is punishable, but a 10 frame mid with that much range is kind of absurd. On top of that, just once he has you in the corner, you feel the pressure. He has a parry, all of that. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's been toned down. Shadow kick is worse. His parry isn't 1 frame startup anymore, thankfully, but you can't go wrong picking Johnny Cage, and I bet you anything he'll win the next offline because that's all Johnny Cage does. Doesn't matter the meta, he's winning grand finals somehow. Yeah, Kenshi is S tier for me. It's easy. With Frost, have you seen the setups he can do now? Every time NetherRealm tries to tone down how easily Kenshi can set up Sento without actually landing hits, a buff to a cameo just gives him a new route for it. And I think Frost has almost received enough buffs where characters like Sub-Zero cameo, which were really helping him stay safe because his weakness is being zoned out, aren't as needed because Frost has a lot of tools to try and protect him from that. But yeah, Kenshi is still the biggest steamroll matchup dependent character in the game. If he's winning that matchup, he's destroying it. It feels awful. And if he's losing that matchup, that's why he's not top 1. He's only not top 1 because of his matchups. I wish Peacemaker didn't come out because maybe we would have gotten a light Kenshi nerf, but the Peacemaker meta, it was so against the Kenshi meta that he'll always be really damn good. Baraka, a character that I used to not call a jack of all trades character, but with all of the buffs, you can find characters with better overheads, find characters with better lows. His mid is definitely dominant at the low and mid ranks. That mid-low, gosh, it's the best move in the game for 50% of players, but his projectile just not as good as a lot of others. I actually think Baraka needs a buff at this point. At least he can break armor, which is nice. He has plus frames on his back 4, his stand 3, his stand 2, is that +1? I think it is. Back 3 and 4 both break armor in the corner, which is really nice, and so you kind of get a mind game. Back 3 will cover an opponent wake up ducking and break armor, but if you commit to back 3-2 for the launch, the opponent, if they block and then duck the second hit, you're getting punished for it. Meanwhile, the 4-4 is the safer option and will break armor, so if the opponent blocks, you have nothing coming up that's unsafe, but stand 4 can be ducked. I don't know if it's 4-4, it's been a while since I've played him, but the chop chop, I don't know. His air moves just aren't that great anymore. He does have throw combos with certain cameos and his armor, you know, is decent, goes pretty far, and he can keep it safe. He just can't do everything like a lot of characters can. There are characters with both a throw combo and an armored launch, it feels like. So I don't know what you would do to buff Baraka though. That's the issue. He actually might be the biggest case. He's a noob destroyer, so if you buff him, nobody at the lower ranks is having fun. So how can you? Don't get me wrong, Baraka mains. I wish he could get a buff, but you have to admit, he dominates low ranks. Even if it's slow, mix is mix. The back 3 mid is essentially mix, and then stand 2 goes really far. So I don't know. Against good players, not great. Low rank players, great. Havoc, best character in the game. Everybody knows it. That's not a hot take. I mean, do I even need to say anything? I'm not even asking for him to be nerfed. I just kind of hope all moves that aren't scaled properly are just toned down in damage a little bit. Like, it doesn't just go for Havoc. If your character has new routes that weren't originally, when the game was released, intended to combo, so it has no scaling properties put on it yet, I just hope those kind of change eventually, and then the characters get compensating buffs. I just hate the rounds ending in 2 seconds. Like, it opened up twice and it's over for me. Now, I'm putting Ashrah up here by Johnny, and for some people, that actually might be a little bit high. I can see the side that her low at this point in the game's lifespan is a bit slow for how stubby it is, but with the buffs it's kind of nice because she can almost keep herself safe with the fact that she could do like her forward 3 overhead, right, then amplify the lift, but then switch phases and purple phase out, if that makes any sense. On top of that, she just gets a lot more pressure post combos now. Anytime she does a combo, she can always switch over to the night stance, and when in dark stance, that is when Ashrah is actually dominant. Now I think she's solid. I do think she's a little dated. Her low projectile isn't great. I don't want it sped up or anything. It's just, you know, a lot of people are blocking it because it needs to be aimed. And also, there are a lot of characters in this game that are good in the air now. Homelander started that trend, and we see it all over the place. But she has plus frames, she has an overhead and low, which is great. Her mid's decent, a really far-reaching forward too, and just overall one of the most complete base kits. If you don't have a cameo, you're not super screwed if that was possible to not have a cameo, which actually means I think we'll see Serena come back as one of her cameo choices. I know you want some mix so you can actually enforce like the stand 2-2, but I think we'll see more so she can constantly meter build as well as get some damage buffs and then do her normal old conversions from back in the day. Sindel, second best character in the game. Do I say anything? Whether it's Tremor or Lao, it's just 2 different game plans that are awful. She chooses Lao. If you get into the corner, it's game over. She chooses Cyrax. You're basically getting vortexed 100% for the rest of your life bar. Now at this point, the Cyrax vortex isn't that crazy with stuff like Scorpion's vortex, which is why you've seen so many more Sindels move to the Tremor route at this point. It's kind of crazy because Sindel's been basically top 3 the entire game's lifespan, and I think she's the only character that can say that. Shao players, I hear the call that he needs a better mid and whatnot, but I'm putting him in A right there. For some reason, I don't know what it is, he reaches top 8s in tournaments more than 90% of the cast. Shao mains just kind of be cooking. It's really weird. You watch online, Shao's reached top 8 and I don't know how. I feel like I have to put him here because he's decently well represented in competitive play, unlike a lot of the characters around him or below him. If you gave Shao a good mid, this character would 100% be top 5, which is scary, and I think why NetherRealm might not have done it yet, unless you took away his health. So for right now, I'm leaving him here, but I actually want to play a lot of Shao myself this season and truly get a feel for the character, because although I'm seeing pros play this character in tournament, is that for the love of the sport and he just happens to be doing pretty well because people don't have the matchup knowledge of Shao, or is he genuinely a middle tier character? He's obviously not low tier, but could he be at the bottom of A or the top of B? Wow, Shang. Okay, if the opponent isn't using Pharah, I would put him probably at the very top of B, if not, you know, actually, I'm gonna put him here. Shang is an A for me because if the opponent has Pharah, Shang becomes one of the best characters in the game. He gets a 0 cooldown, essentially, Pharah command grab. So he could throw it out in neutral. He could throw it out after the first low. He could throw it out after the second low. He could cancel into it almost after every hit, man. You just have to start jumping against the character. But realistically, you should swap off Pharah. So I think if Shang is against a Pharah, he gets a win pretty easily. But then anybody smart should swap cameos immediately, so he ends up getting counterpicked. I think he he needs to have his combo properties adjusted a bit to play better with the cameos he's good with. That's his main thing. He doesn't need any frame buffs or anything like that to me. He just needs to be able to convert more smoothly off of his own cameo. Nitara, she's bottom of S for me. I won't put her above Kitana because I think Nitara is such a glass cannon that it's a risky pick, but she has the best movement in the entire game, can make everything whiff. She takes the Homelander be in the air meta and just turns it up to 12,000. She's hidden for 50 to 60% every time she touches you. She does have less health, but yes, it's truly the glass cannon. And I think with the movement and the Sonya buff, or if you want to keep using Farah, she's really solid and she doesn't have any direct weakness aside from the health, and she doesn't have anything disgusting aside from her damage and movement. Damage and movement so good that it's game breaking almost, but everything else is just mid at best. So I like to keep her at low S because good Nitara players win fairly easily and she can counterpick some of the cast pretty easily. But I don't think if you're trying to surefire win, you should be picking Nitara unless you are just perfectly on point and you've chugged 8 monsters and your name is Kyle. Reiko's top 5. I'd actually put him up here in 3rd. That's probably a hot take. That's higher than most people, but now he has the overhead and low combo starters. He has a mid command grab, a regular command grab, best poke in the game, one of the best fatal blows in the game. It's a true guess because he can aim it. If you jump, he could do the upward version, and if he does the grounded, it's a mid command grab. So it's crazy. And then on top of that, best projectile. He has the slide so he can close gap for full screen punishes at ease. Plus frames as well. Ridiculous. Omni-Man. I keep Omni-Man around mid usually. Nothing's changed about him. In fact, he got the overhead launcher. While Jax is still meta, I think Omni-Man sits here. Now, I'm not saying playing Jax is Omni-Man's best cameo, but he has some variety. He can play well on his own. He's got 2 decent mids. He doesn't have to spend hardly any meter at all, so he can always break every combo. He gets armored combos. If he's using Mavado for the armored combos, he could technically do throw combos, even though you have to be really tight on the timing to get the better damage. The only thing he lacks when playing Mavado is a true projectile because he's like Mileena and has to spend the bar to make it go even farther, but still, he's a good character. The only knock against him compared to previously is people have figured out his slips, you know, people get cheesed by it a lot less often. I might just try Omni-Man Jax just to do a rage quit compilation. Quan, you know, I suck against this character. If it's against me, this character's S+. It might be the character I suck against the most in the entire game because I've never labbed it and I never see any Quans. In reality, I have him below sub, but probably above Tanya just because Tanya is pointless to me, doesn't have an archetype, doesn't have a point. At least Quan has some cool stuff with the armor portal and things like that. Quan to me seems buggy to play. I notice his moves whiff on me all the time and it's just armor portal endlessly. His pokes are still a detriment to him. He has less health. He is very meter intensive and he's kind of like the knowledge check character. If you don't know what you're doing against Quan, he shoots up the tier list, but as soon as you've mastered this game plan, he is down here because he's all gimmicks essentially. Peacemaker, I'll put Peacemaker right around here with Tanya. I don't actually think Peacemaker is worse than Tanya, solely because if he wants to, he could stay away and play zoning for the entire match. I mean, at least that's all right. There aren't enough zoners to counter him. So if we're in Combat League and you can't see the opponent's pick, he might be the better zoner. Whereas Tanya, yeah, there's so many cast members that are doing what she used to do right now, except for the safe armored launches, of course. Those are finally gone. Thank you. Ermac, he's up here for me. Ermac is nasty. Foxy Grandpa was right. This character only gets more ridiculous by the day. It actually makes me happy because Ermac is so cool that seeing a character develop that just took a lot of time for people to master because he hasn't really gotten any buffs or anything is just sweet. But the good things are best cancel pressure in the game. Back 2 is great. Having a safe overhead is great. Great meterless damage, armored combos. He can literally negate damage and then not have to spend any meter because he has Janet Cage or Scorpion. He can rock 50% combos at will if you know how to do Gento stance. And then he's very much like Homelander was, where all of a sudden he can do float pressure where you don't know if he'll cancel down to the low or stay in the air and go for a jump attack, alongside some decent armor breaking setups and frame traps in the corner. Character is really solid, one of the best neutral checks in the game, and throw is decent too. Homelander, this character is still up here. I don't think he's dropped down any lower at the highest level. I think, yeah, lower mid ranks aren't getting hit as much, which is nice, but he's still doing 30+% off command grabs, which is insane. Plus having mix, plus you can't combo him properly half the time. Still is a good zoner, still is annoying as to fight against. I can't drop him any lower. I'm actually going to put him above Ermac. I don't think he's dropped very low for me. He's the exact same character at the highest level. You know, I don't know what it is, but I don't think Takeda is awful these days. I'm putting him at the top of C. I think once you figure out the Takeda matchup, he becomes less good. Still has a lot of ways he can be punished by either up blocking or flawless blocking, as well as gaps. But when he does get his hits, he does decent damage. If you can't challenge his neutral, he'll feel pretty oppressive at first, and changing the shuriken thing to being a low was great, but he definitely relies on people not knowing the matchup. As soon as you know his gaps or flawless block punishes or anything like that, the character becomes a lot worse, and if not, he's moving like Jackie Briggs in MK11 and he feels oppressive. Just doesn't have anything really all that special. Armor's not great, his teleport is it gets mashed out of a lot. He can't even do it on block as some kind of YOLO play. It just gets mashed out of. So that's probably his biggest weakness. If he's losing and he needs to do something desperate, almost nothing out of desperation works for Takeda. Cyrax, I still think Cyrax is good. It might not be as oppressive as it used to be, but I'd put Cyrax right here towards the top of it. You're gonna see less people play her for a little bit, but give it time, she'll be back. We know why she's good. Her buttons aren't great, but as soon as she gets you trapped in the corner, whether you tech the throw, get hit by the throw, she uses buttons, anything, you're getting launched. So you're forced into just trying to delay wake up and then block and await her pressure to end. But that's kind of just how it is for any trap character that needs to throw with bomb setups and stuff. Some games it's going to go great for Cyrax, other games the opponent's not going to get hit and make all the right guesses. Sektor, you know, to me, I'd put Sektor right around Geras. I'd probably put her right here. The cancel is much easier to do. I still think she is a great zoner, although I'd say one buff for Sektor. Just make her rocket stay if she gets hit. It's ridiculous she's the only character that's like that. You don't have to make the homing rocket like that, but just the setup rocket seems fine. You have to aim it between like 4 different directions already, and the opponent can move. So I think if she gets hit, she should keep her rocket. I still think she's strong, though. She does great damage, has an overhead and low, which is nice, even if they're not the fastest. Solid ranged mids, decent frames, because she's like one of those characters that gets 0 on block, which is nice. But she'll forever be a zoning queen, and it's annoying to chase her down as she's jumping backwards, just shooting endless rockets, and then teleport punishing you if you try and do anything risky. Noob, to me, in Sonic Fox's hands, or just any of the best players, is top 5. Now, I think for the average player, it wouldn't be top 5 because it's actually pretty hard to time. I've played some decent noobs, and you still see people missing Ghost Ball on the overhead, even though I'm getting hit by it slowly more and more. It's kind of insane. I'm getting reset vortex mix. The thing about noob is once he gets Ghost Ball, it's a 50-50 on you for a combo. But on top of that, another annoying part is he's a decent zoner. He could throw the teleporter down on the ground. He could start shooting clones at you, downward clones, straight clones. He could do a lot. So anytime he's concluded his pressure, say he takes a bunch of damage, then you're stuck chasing him around the whole match. Like, he can literally jump backwards and do very well, because the sweep is also ridiculous. So he's trip guarding jump-ins very often with the sweep. Even if you feel you're out of anti-air range, he's trip guarding. He just works really well with Janet Cage as a whole. Character's disgusting at this point. Scorpion is going right here, and that's where I'd say is the big drama. I see almost no Scorpions in top 8, and I was saying this on Twitter, and people tend to agree with me, but I was saying this because some people are putting Scorpion like top 3, even pro players, but it's like I never see Scorpions playing. We have Mari, and obviously for offlines we have Javier, and Javier does play in some onlines, but he's just so infrequent. Meanwhile, you can watch an online tournament, see 2 Havocs, 2 Sindels, a Reiko, 2 Noob Saibots, and Kenshi's everywhere. So I'm not trying to downplay him. I think he's incredibly strong, but I think secretly some people know the game plan to beating Scorpion isn't impossible to solve. So Scorpions will still do really well regardless, but Scorpions will kind of just be pushed into Jax. Pharah just isn't working anymore. You're getting punished, it's getting blocked, all of those things. You throw Jax on there and you're playing the cheesiest neutral of all time with Scorpion. He's very strong. He's top 6 to me. I thought before this recent patch he was 4th. Back 3 isn't actually actually what I think is the strongest. I think it's the control he has with down 3, Jax, and spin. The fact that Jax gives him armored combos. He plays into the mirror really well because he can throw Jax out to not get hit by spear himself. And he's doing great damage with Jax. He's just so annoying to fight. I'll admit it right here. He's so annoying to fight. And then lastly, we have Ghostface. There's not a lot to say. He's kind of a glass cannon, not in terms of health, but in his bad matchups, he gets crushed. Bro, playing Ghostface against a character like Homelander that is just jumping around full screen. Anybody who's jumping around, you can't use your mid command grab that costs 2 bars. That'll just whiff. You can't run at the opponent because he'll just shoot a laser at you. And you really have no way to stop the opponent spacing you out. Ghostface's biggest problem is getting spaced out. You could try and use Mavado to bring the opponent closer, but then the opponent's jumping, so Mavado's like pull together move will whiff. Now with the infinite, he's top 1, and in the right matchups, or if the opponent isn't trying to run away from you and just saying, oh, we'll throw hands right here in the center of the stage, he's really good. So I'd say he is super matchup dependent, very much like Kenshi. He gets zoned out really, really bad, but his vortex and mix is insane. I mean, he's comboing off of every throw, every overhead low, he's restanding everything, and he's incredibly fun to play. You just can run away from him to win if you need to, which kind of sucks. So I'll put him right here for right now. I need to see more. I need to see some tech that truly stops you from getting zoned out when you're playing Ghostface. Plus, all his pokes are -8, so if he's playing Li Mei, he's getting punished on every blocked poke. His armor's still kind of trash. Like, it hits, but I think that's just kind of whack. When he's changing killer stance, like, you know how it's safe if he's, say, an assassin or an enforcer? That's still doing all the damage. If you down 2 Ghostface right there, he loses 14% health. And I think once everyone starts to realize that, he becomes much worse. I see everyone just throwing out pokes and things like that, so it's doing 1 to 5% damage. Throw out a down 2. It does absurd damage. He loses so much of his health bar, and it doesn't seem like it at the time because he doesn't take hit stun. But he can't be bad. He's got a tick throw and all the other things I said, and combos off every throw. Having a mid command grab, how can you be bad? Anyways, that's my tier list. Let me know what you think about this one. I know there's a lot of characters in A, but that's because I believe the game is in a much better state than it used to be. A lot of characters can win at a lot of different levels. If you enjoyed, like, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video.